So let's take a look at the latest Graham Platner. New York Times knew this, but the conversation was off the record. Okay. Woman who dated Graham Platner says he sexually assaulted her. The Maine Democrat denied the allegations and said any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue. A woman who dated Maine U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner says he forced her to have sex with him nearly 5 years ago, despite her repeated objections, an allegation Platner denies. The woman, a 41-year-old Maine resident named Jenny Rassicott, detailed the alleged incident to Politico in 3 interviews over the past 2 weeks. Politico also spoke with a man Rassicott dated and confided in the years after the alleged incident, and reviewed documents, including emails between Rassicott and her therapist and messages between Rassicott and acquaintance. That is curtains. Okay. Hasan Piker no. That is the trifecta. Okay. That is the trifecta of a reliable allegation. That's holy shit. Okay. Personal firsthand testimony to a friend, a close confidant, back from way before Graham Platner ever fucking ran for Congress. Are you kidding me? And then also direct testimony from a therapist. That is very different. Very different from a Republican operative coming out and being like, oh yeah, I had a touch and go moment with Graham Platner. I wouldn't even say he like physically abused me or anything. That's very different. There is not direct testimony from a therapist. No, sorry. Emails between Rassicott and her therapist, okay? Emails that are dated, that seems a little bit different than previous statements and previous things that were talked, previous discussions around Graham Platner's misconduct or alleged misconduct, okay? What I don't understand is why the New York Times didn't report it, but apparently the Politico article gets into that, so we'll take a look at it. So, reviewed documents, including emails between Rassicott and her therapist and messages between Rassicott and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Platner years before he ran for office. Rassicott says she had an on and off relationship with Platner, who is now the Democratic Senate nominee in Maine, for more than 2 years before he entered her rural Maine home uninvited one night, in late 2021, deeply intoxicated, and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him. So this is one of the two. Rassicott is the other. New York Times, if you recall, interviewed 7 former girlfriends of Graham Platner. There was one that said she had a bad moment with Graham Platner. This, I think, expands on what that bad moment was with a very significant allegation. Trigger warning, I will be reading out depictions of sexual assault from this point on. She said she cut off contact with him after telling him the encounter was not consensual. I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me, she said. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice. Platner denied the allegations. These allegations are troubling, serious, and false. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue, he said in a statement. Rassicott previously described reckless and unsettling behavior by Platner to the New York Times, but she says she didn't go public with the specific assault claim because she didn't want to be known as a rape victim. Rassicott said she later felt compelled to go public about her experience because the reaction to the Times story was dominated by controversy about another woman, Lindsay Fifield, who alleged Platner mistreated her and faced attacks because of her ties to the Republican Party. Contacted by Politico, Fifield stood by the allegations she made to the Times and declined to comment further. My part of the story was just a read-over, Rassicott said in an interview, and the story was just Lindsay and the accusations of her being politically motivated. Rassicott said she was torn over coming forward in part because she agrees with Platner politically. One of the reasons I didn't come forward sooner was the huge moral conflict that I had between supporting his politics but not supporting him as a person, she said. I just want the truth out there. I just want people to have the whole scope of who he is as a person. In a statement, the Platner campaign reiterated his denial and accuses critics of trying to drive him out of the race. These allegations are very serious, and Graham vigorously denies them. They are also coached and coordinated by out-of-state establishment operatives. For a year, opponents of this campaign have thrown everything they can at Graham, calling him a Nazi, a war criminal, and a communist. None of it has been true, and this is no different. It is not a coincidence that this story comes a week before the ballot deadline, just as the previous false allegations came a week before the primary. Graham began this campaign to fight for a Maine where everyone is treated with dignity and where Mainers are put first, and no amount of desperate smears will stop this movement from seeing that vision through. Platner, an oysterman and political newcomer when he launched his Senate campaign last August, easily won the Democratic primary last month to face GOP Senator Susan Collins in one of the nation's most highly watched Senate races. His remarkable rise has been tainted by controversies including offensive online comments and allegations of past mistreatment of women. He has not previously been accused of sexual assault. So here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. This is a serious accusation of the highest order, and it has all of the hallmarks of a verifiable accusation. Okay, conversations in the past, far before Graham Platner came on the scene as a political operative, is a fairly reliable way to verify these accusations. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. Okay, like, as you guys know, my policy on this is, believe women doesn't mean reflexively assume that all women are incapable of telling a lie or anything. It just means, like, don't reflexively disbelieve women, right? And contemporaneous communications is huge, especially if they are before he was in politics. Exactly. Central Committee is correct on this. It's a huge part of this. Okay. I assume that they will explain as to why the New York Times didn't get into this, but here's the other side of the story. Okay. I believe this accusation. I believe this allegation. Let me just make that very clear, especially because, once again, there are other friends with correspondence from before Graham Platner became a known entity, right? That's very important because you're not actively seeking to rat fuck a person if that person is not a political operative at all, right? Like, that's a random oyster fisherman, okay? It's a random oyster fisherman at that point in fucking Maine. The timing of this, on the other hand, is once again fucked up. The timing of the drop is in the column of rat fucking, but the accusations are certainly real, okay? Do with that information what you will, but the accusations, they are as credible as it is going to get, okay? Unless the correspondence between Rassicot and her friend is not from back then, or the other partner that Rassicot had, which I have no reason to believe that that's the case, for the record. Okay, it still ultimately lends itself to a verifiable and credible accusation. Both the therapist and the friend refused to comment. This needs receipts. So let's continue. Is this rat fucking if they're giving him time to drop out, I guess? Well, we'll get into that in a second. The Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran has linked some of his behavior to mental health struggles and alcohol abuse, but he says he's changed and has denied previous claims that he was abusive to women. Rassicot told Politico she connected with Platner on the dating app Bumble in 2019 and had consensual relations with him prior to the night he allegedly assaulted her. That night in late 2021, she said she had exchanged text messages with him and told him not to come over, saying she wasn't in the mood for company. Later that evening, she said she realized when he heard a sound on the stairs that he had let himself into her house, which was unlocked. Platner came up the stairs, Rassicot said, to where she was on a couch. He got on top of her, kept grabbing her, she said, while she repeatedly told him to stop and that she wasn't interested. Rassicot said she smelled of alcohol in his breath and believed he was almost blackout drunk because Platner kept ignoring her protests and continued to grab her after knocking over an antique sewing kit, spilling small needles everywhere. I'd been telling him these words, no, don't, she recalled. And the look on his face, realizing what was happening, I just realized that, like, I'm in a situation where there's no consent here, she said. Rassicot said she tried to separate herself from Platner by telling him she couldn't be in that room anymore, after which he followed her to the bedroom and had sex with her against her will. She said she said he also ejaculated inside of her despite her telling him not to, as she was not using birth control at the time. Oof. Oh, that's brutal. She went to clean herself up, she said, and when she returned, Platner had fallen asleep. She contemplated waking him up to kick him out, but worried he could hurt someone driving in the state that he was in. The following morning, she said, Platner tried to put his arm around her, and she pushed him away. She said she asked him whether he remembered what had happened the previous night. According to Rassicot, Platner said he didn't remember. Rassicot said she told him to leave and never contact her again. Rassicot said she waited several weeks until she got her period to ensure she wasn't pregnant, then sent Platner a private message on Instagram saying that the encounter was not consensual and she did not want to hear from him ever again. Rassicot had no further contact with him after that, she said. Rassicot said she later deleted all of her text and social media correspondence with Platner as she tried to move on from the assault, and said she has not been able to recover the Instagram messages she sent him about the incident. In the weeks after the alleged assault, Rassicot says she considered going to the police but struggled with shock and confusion about what had happened to her and did not file a police report. Even as time passed, she said she felt uncomfortable potentially telling a police officer about such a personal experience and feared retaliation from Platner. At first, she confided only in her therapist, who she continues to see. Rassicot showed Politico recent emails with her therapist, in which Rascott explained she was talking to the media about her relationship with Platner and said the sexual assault rape using an abbreviation for sexual assault. In the message, Rascott was not ready to go public and was seeking help corroborating her account in conversations she was having with the reporters on condition of anonymity. Her therapist responded that Rascott shouldn't have to speak publicly about a traumatic incident in order to be believed, without referencing details of any particular incident. Rasico, the T is silent. Rasico, okay. Yeah, not going to the police is perfectly normal in situations like this, for the record, just so you guys understand. So they don't have the therapist who Politico agreed not to name at her request declined to comment when reached on Monday. So Rasico also shared details about the alleged assault to the man she dated after Platner, who she began dating in 2022. The man, who was granted anonymity out of concern for his personal privacy, told Politico that Rasico had told him in bits and pieces about a bad experience with Platner before confiding the full details of what happened in 2023. His account of what Rasico told him about the incident matched what Rasico told Politico. Okay? Rasico shared with Politico a series of private Facebook messages she exchanged with an acquaintance in 2023, about a year and a half after the alleged assault and well before Platner launched his political career, in which she cautioned the acquaintance against getting involved with Platner. In the messages, Rasico says she had ended up in a bad situation with him, describing Platner as a consensually careless and saying he doesn't listen to you when drunk. Reached out by Politico, the acquaintance said she received the messages but declined to comment. Politico granted her anonymity at her request to protect her privacy in her main community. What's his deal? Should I not fix him up with my friend, assuming he's single? He can be charming and funny, and he's a decently intelligent person, but he's not all bad. But I ended up in a bad situation with him, and I will just very politely call him consensually careless at times. When drunk, plus PTSD. I knew about the PTSD. He lies also. Forces himself on people. Wait, what? That's the cutoff? There's more, click the arrow. Oh. No, this is the earlier. I saw your post about oysters the other day. I feel morally obligated to warn you if you were anything more than just friends with Graham. But if you're not, then I'll just shut up for now and give you the scoop sometime, lol. Just friends. Would love the scoop, though. Is he still engaged? I was working on fixing on a friend. Oh, I have no idea. With who? Oh, a girl. I think her name is Jen from like the Rockland area. I don't know. I haven't heard of anyone. He was as of last summer that I know of, but also my timeline's a little sketch. So maybe it was the summer before. But either way, they've been on and off. But then I was told they got engaged. Yeah, COVID totally messed up my timeline for everything. What's his deal? Should I not fix him up with my friend, assuming he's single? He lies also. Okay, so here is they were out of order. I don't know why the fuck Politico put it out of order like this. God damn it. A bunch of fucking boomers, I guess. Forced himself on people. One thing that grossed me out after him and I had dated was that I saw his profile on OkCupid, and that site asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions was, if your partner told you they had over 100 sexual partners, what would your response be? And his response was, that's not that many. So that super grossed me out, thinking he's probably slept with a ton of people. Doesn't listen to you when drunk, ... Yeah. So that's corroboration. That's backing up her, previous assessment. But I don't know what she says. I don't know what the other lady says after this. And then I don't know what her response is afterwards. But Politico also spoke with a friend Rasico had told about the alleged assault last summer, shortly after Platner launched his campaign. The friend, to whom Politico granted anonymity due to fear of social and professional backlash, recalled Rasico telling her about the incident, including that Platner had been very drunk and wouldn't take no for an answer. Rasico said she was contacted by the New York Times in the spring and shared off the record that Platner had assaulted her. She told the Times that she had some positive memories of her relationship with Platner, but thought he did not respect women and had cut off contact with him after an incident in 2021 when Platner had come over drunk. But the Times article stated that Rasico declined to elaborate about what had happened, only describing his behavior as reckless and unsettling. A spokesperson for the Times declined to comment. After the publication of the Times report, Rasico connected with Cheyenne Hunt, a progressive Democratic lawyer who founded the nonprofit Reckoning Action, which launched earlier this year to fight misogyny. Hunt, who had endorsed Platner last fall but renounced her support for him after the Times article. So I remember this. This is the random lady who was like who came out and was like, I hate Graham Platner and stuff like that. And I initially thought that it was because of some potential foreign intervention. It turns out it was because of this story. Hunt, who had endorsed Platner last fall, renounced her support for him after the Times article, previously supported women who came forward with assault allegations against former Representative Eric Swalwell earlier this year, prompting him to drop out of the California gubernatorial primary and resign from Congress. NBC News previously reported that Hunt was working with multiple women who had past relations with Platner. Hunt connected Politico to Rasico. Reckoning action exists to confront misogyny in American life in all forms and manifestations, including in bad actors being elected to positions of power, Hunt said. We became aware of the allegations before ever being connected with Jenny and have been in contact with multiple women with really troubling allegations, and it just became clear that this is someone who is not fit to hold public office. After the Times report last month, Platner has said that allegations of physical misconduct were simply not true, and his allies seized on Fifield's conservative political affiliations to suggest that her allegations against him in the Times were motivated by politics. I still stand by what I said about Fifield, by the way, especially considering that she spent a good deal of time not just like being a Republican operative, but specifically defending Brett Kavanaugh against those very real allegations. Brett Kavanaugh then also turned around and literally denied women bodily autonomy. Like, you know, hundreds of millions of women on U.S. soil were impacted by Brett Kavanaugh's lies. So I will once again stand by my previous statements on that story. This is a different situation, I think. Like, here's the thing. This is as airtight as it's going to get as far as allegations goes, right? As far as allegations goes, this is fairly airtight, okay? And it's not even because if you remember, I said this about Fifield as well. If you recall in my commentary on the Fifield allegations, I said if there was corroboration at the time from friends of Lindsay Fifield, it wouldn't matter whether or not she was a Republican operative, right? If you recall, that's what I said. This seems to me like there is corroboration. Now, the only thing that would be potentially the only thing that would be in defense of Graham Platner here, which is it seems the allegations that seem super credible and indefensible, would be if there was like financial, if there was any sort of financial entanglement between a friend, but it doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, it's very, very unlikely. You know what I mean? Just so you guys understand. And the reason why I'm taking this position is to show you that there is a lot of veracity to these claims. Like even in the most heavily scrutinized version of events, in order for this allegation to be untrue, would only happen if this experience is real and she felt uncomfortable by this experience, understandably, because this is, you know, clear-cut date rape under the influence of alcohol, right? But she previously she felt conflicted about it, maybe confided in her friends, maybe confided in her therapist, worked through it, and then after the fact, and breaking and entering as well, which is, you know, not the main point here. Obviously, the violation of consent of someone's, you know, bodily autonomy in the process of a date rape is probably, you know, it's a breaking and entering is also another violation of consent, but nowhere near as significant as you know, rape. For this to be untrue, she would have had to been slandering him in 2023 because no. This is much worse than the allegation that Fifield made. That's why I'm saying it's credible 100%. Right? No, what I'm saying is, like, I don't think it's disputed that Graham Platner actually violated this person's consent. There's no dispute there at all. Okay? None. Because it's ridiculous, right? It would be totally fucking ridiculous. Bro, it's just rape, not date rape. I mean, date rape is rape, chatters. There's no distinction. I mean, it's just rape. It's violent sexual assault. So here's the thing. What I was trying to say is this definitely happened, right? For this to be something that she's like reconsidering, regardless of whether or not it happened, because that is not in dispute at all. But for her to like reconsider and then come out right now, the only thing that would tarnish the credibility of this the victim here would be if there was like any additional coaching or something, or if like outside groups came in and were like, hey, this is a serious allegation, you should definitely come out and speak on it. And even then, even then that happens at times because it takes a lot of courage for victims to come out in instances where they're accusing someone of sexual assault, especially when the person that they're accusing of sexual assault is now running for Senate and is a fairly popular candidate, right? So no matter what, this seems very, very reliable, and it doesn't even matter if there's it doesn't even there would need to literally be like money exchanged, okay? There would need to have been money exchanged literally by like an outside group or something for this to come across as any way, shape, or form like a potential rat fucking operation and not someone who is reconsidering the experiences that they went through and the very real allegations of sexual assault. Okay? Once again, I'm trying to give you the most critical lens here as someone who definitely believes Rasico's firsthand account here, especially because, like I said, contemporaneous conversations from back then with other people, especially before Graham Platner became like a known political figure, it's consistent with true testimony. Okay. Anyway, wow. Yeah, she even said she still agrees with his politics. Like, it's just, I mean, that doesn't even matter. Let's be real. Like, guys, I need you to understand something, okay? From my perspective, I looked at Lindsay Feefield's testimony, and what did I tell you? Her politics are secondary in this, even though it was directly related to the Brett Kavanaugh situation and doing PR for Brett Kavanaugh, which obviously makes her a less credible accuser. However, the real reason, as I repeatedly told you back then, was that there was no contemporaneous conversations. There were no conversations that Lindsay Feefield had had with her friends about Graham Platner beyond being like, oh yeah, he's a bit of a rough shot. He's a bit of a rough guy. There was never something as clear cut as Lindsay Feefield confiding in a friend or confiding in a new partner or going to therapy. Like there was no secondhand testimony that you could go to. And I said at the time, if there was, that would mean that this is a credible accusation regardless. If there was at the time a credible accusation, regardless of her background as a political operative, that would be a credible accusation nonetheless. On MS Now last month, after the New York Times report, Platner denied claims that he had physically mistreated women, anything alleging physicality, anything alleging that I knew my tattoo was. These are statements of someone who's politically motivated. He told MS Now, alluding to unrelated allegations about a tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol. Platner had the tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol covered up last fall and said he had not known what the symbol meant. Rasico said she was bothered by Platner's public denial that he had been physical towards women. I know that he's capable of putting his hands on women, she said, so I don't believe that to be the truth. So that's the political reporting. Now let's get to Graham Platner came out with a statement after this article came out.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built.
What is this? When did you / what made you change your stance on this after the news broke a few weeks ago, during which you downplayed it? Did you read the Politico article where the victim literally said she did not feel comfortable revealing the full extent of Graham Platner's actions? You know, this is an entirely new article. This is the same victim with actual allegations. I did not yet. So why did you come in here with this assessment then? Are you okay? This new article came out an hour ago. This new article actually has like verifiable and very credible allegations of sexual assault. The previous article, which featured the same victim, did not have these allegations. And what's interesting about it is that the New York Times did not report on it. It was a choice that she had made. From what I understand, there is going to be a story beyond the choices that the media made. New York Times simply called it unsettling behavior. That was Rasico's statement on the record. Very different. Unsettling behavior can be a wide range of things. Lots of centrists blaming you today for Graham Platner. Out of all of the crop of left populist candidates, Graham Platner is the one left populist candidate that I have not done any campaigning with. It's the one left populist candidate that I have shown scrutiny towards at times. Incredible. Pills Mafia till the bitter end. Okay, I'm not going to joke right now. Anyway, yeah, rape is just a tool for quote-unquote leftists to weaponize against the streamers they hate the most. Fuck these online losers. I know.
The largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics. The hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So,
this might be an unfair question, but I would like to know what you think should be done if Platner drops out and if there's still a road to go for Maine. I mean, I think it's fucking cooked. I think it's cooked. I think he probably will drop out, and I don't know what else to fucking say about it other than holy shit, Susan Collins. I mean, talk about a person that just, this video is like 95% pablum, by the way, just so you know. Yeah, I mean, he fucking came out of the gate swinging with the denial. If Platner drops out, his hardcore supporters would be insanely pissed, and Collins will absolutely win. Any replacement will be seen as an establishment stooge. Yeah, Platner drops out. It has to be a commie. Chris Rabb being skeptical when questioned about Platner a few weeks ago is just so justified right now. AOC staying away from the Graham Platner campaign comes across as, fairly, I mean, it just looks very different in hindsight. Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of red flags that I also pointed to. This is beyond red flags, though. This is irredeemable. I said it even back then. I said it even before the New York Times report came out, where I said, like, look, if there's sexual assault, and it's over, it's fucking irredeemable. It's unacceptable. And it's true. It remains to be the case. Yeah. Washington Reporter exclusive. Graham Platner to drop out of Maine Senate race, giving Democrats time to replace him is what they're looking for. Susan Collins, a supporter of the rapist POTUS, is going to win because the alternative is a rapist to our society is so incredibly fucked now. Yeah. I mean, this is a clear cut. This is not like any of the other allegations. This is not on shaky ground. This is as open and shut as it gets. Okay. Apologize to everyone who's been warning you about Graham Platner from the beginning, you performative coward. Yeah. Okay, dude.
Regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people.
I love when, you know what's funny? I love when people go, hey, this ginormous incident with significant accusations of sexual assault took place that's shaking up national news. How can I make this about my least favorite Twitch streamer? Are you okay? How are you any different than the fucking weirdo Epstein fans who literally saw October 7 and then watched as Israel started bombing Gaza, immediately killing more people than October 7, and went to work to be like, this is our opportunity to make sure that we compile every single thing that Hasan says so we can make this a national story later down the line. If you see incidents taking place of national consequence, and your first thought is, how do I make this about a fucking Twitch streamer? You're not going to make it. Shut the fuck up.
That I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power.
We're not making it about our least favorite Twitch streamer. We're asking for some accountability since you absolutely give positive coverage to this guy after knowing what he did in the Middle East. You're supposed to be on our side, but you run cover for people you know are war criminals, even though sexual assault is where you draw the line. I'm gonna move on from this. Okay, please shut the fuck up, please.
And to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated, and we will use every tool at our disposal to do so. As Maine goes, so goes the nation.
Genuinely, he's saying that Platner's entire defense of this is just nuh-uh. He's saying that there were a coordinated smear campaign and coaching, but if that was the case, he put that shit on the limelight yesterday, instead nothing. Yeah. Does your community seriously believe that being in the military means automatically you're a war criminal? No. But there are some in my community that does, definitely. There are definitely people on the left who automatically go, oh, you touched a machine gun. You were in the American military. The American military is an imperialist force. You have done war crimes. It's understandable why people arrive at that conclusion, for the record, because many who do active duty combat, who see active duty combat, engage in things like that. My scrutiny of this, of Graham Platner's background, came from his 4 tours plus Blackwater, but it wasn't enough for me to say, like, this is, I'm pulling out of this. I wanted to and made the effort to try to interview him specifically on that and never got the opportunity to do so, for the record. They were very dodgy about, they were initially interested, but then when I offered my scrutiny very publicly, the campaign was somewhat dodgy about it. And I never got to actually ask him personally about some of these questions that I had.